Hi there! If you're new here, I'm Alani, and in this video I'm going to be painting a scene from Iron Lung, or more specifically the trailer, because I couldn't find anything high-res enough to reference from. As I'm painting, I'm just going to be going over my thoughts and connections with the movie. For as long as I can remember having access to YouTube, so probably about 12 years now, I've been watching people play games, draw, and do stupid stuff. One of the maybe 10 channels that's still present in my memory of the good old days is Markiplier. I remember watching all the FNAF videos and going to school so excited just to talk about the lore with my friends. I started watching his channel specifically more when he started posting the creepypasta games and the SCP games, and with all the Happy Wheels and lighthearted charity or vlogs that he did, it was easy to keep coming back for more as a kid, and I'm very glad that I did. This last week or two has actually been really nostalgic to me, just because I've been revisiting all of the old YouTubers that I used to watch. With researching Iron Lung reviews, I've been getting a ton of old Markiplier videos recommended to me. I'm sure he'll never see this, and I'm sure he knows it if he does, but he really did make a difference. Even if it was just silly gaming videos, they gave me and so many others something to look forward to after a hard day. His heart and the person that he is has been a role model to so many young people, and I'm sure he still is to this day. This might sound a little sappy, and I think that's valid, but this painting is definitely dedicated to Mark, who made something of himself from the person that he is and the personality that he has, and followed a passion project that is honestly so inspiring in and of itself, and of course to this movie that I loved very much. Now, I very much liked this movie. I loved it even. I've seen reviews for it, good and bad, and I just wanted to put my opinion out there as a Mark fan, a horror fan, and just an enjoyer of good movies. First of all, this movie made #1 in New Zealand among other countries, and I think for that we should have gotten a visit in our cinemas too. Just by the way. But anyway, I'm just gonna start by shooting off some of the negatives that I've seen towards this movie and then go on to my own thoughts. It'll make sense why I'm doing it this way in a minute. The most common negative reviews that I've seen was that the pacing of the first half of this movie was slow or boring even. That there was this monotony, which I did find to be true in watching the gameplay, especially in just the demo stages. With Simon, our main character, having small verbal interactions and really only traversing through somewhere that we as the viewer cannot see, I think I kind of understand where people are coming from when they said it was boring, but I do have more thoughts about this later, and I don't actually agree with that opinion. A point that Moist Critical had in his Is Iron Lung Good video, which the conclusion he came to is that it is, but he did have his critiques, of course, was that the separation between Markiplier the YouTuber and Simon the convict was difficult. I haven't really seen this opinion anywhere else, but it did get me thinking, so I thought I'd include it anyway. To be honest, on this take, I feel like we see so many actors nowadays that play wildly different roles in different movies and different series, and I feel like this is no different. Markiplier's acting definitely improves in the latter half of the movie, and as it progresses, so does his emotion and everything that he's able to portray and needs to portray as the character. But when you think about it, Mark gained his fame from his personality and the character that he does portray in his videos. Because even me talking to the camera right now, I feel like, of course, you're not seeing the full me. Like, no one behind the camera is going to be able to see that, because the best version of ourselves forward towards a camera. And sure, he isn't an actor by profession, but with all things considered, if you let yourself be there in the moment of the movie, putting aside that you may just be there to see a YouTuber that you like on screen, his ability to convey emotion and the loss of hope throughout the progression of this movie was convincing enough to separate the person he is with the character he's playing. Another critique that I saw that I actually agree with a little bit was that the audio mixing in certain dialogue during the movie made it incredibly hard to understand what was going on. When the black box recording starts to play, along with the ship shaking around, I got completely lost. I actually only heard the dialogue the second time watching it after my boyfriend had told me what he had heard, so I kind of knew what to expect. I have a hard time processing speech in noisy environments on a good day, so it might just be a me problem. But I've seen a few others with this opinion as well, so I think it may be just greater than me. Similarly, there were some scenes that I found quite hard to see. At points, it was just so dark that I couldn't quite make out what was going on. At least being in a cinema where it's so dark and the screen is so big, it gave me the best chance to see what was happening. And with the context clues that I did have, I was able to follow what was going on. But if I had just seen that scene on its own, I definitely would not have understood what was going on. To be fair, I think that was more like an action scene where he was kind of thrashing around, probably when the ship's lights went out, but for a while it was just black and then like flashes of low light. And for a good 4 minutes, I had no idea what was going on. But anyway, back to my thoughts about the pacing. I'm going to read H. Bomber Guy's letterbox review on Iron Lung. Just the first 2 paragraphs, because I think they say it better than I probably could. It is a bit of a chunk of text though, so sit back. There's a trilogy of movies adapting the first Mobile Suit Gundam. It's about 7 hours total, it gets boring in stretches, and it keeps going and going. And as some more horrors of war inflicted on the cast, you start to miss the boring bits. You didn't know how bad things were going to get for these poor guys. It was nicer when they were alive. You regret feeling bored, like actually feel sorry you wanted to speed things up. By hour 5 to 7, you're just a little bit insane. On behalf of all the smashed men and boys killing each other over ideas they don't understand. I've never felt anything like this before or since. Iron Lung comes closer than any movie I can think of, and it does it in 2 hours and 7 minutes. He talks more about how the film was boring at times, but that it feels purposeful, saying, "The film captures the mind-numbing emptiness of flying blind in a tiny submarine where you could die at any moment. But that moment might come several quiet, empty days from now." I really wish I could have put this in my own words, but I watched Mark's actual emergency meeting stream right as we got home from the first time seeing the movie, which was just crazy coincidence. But he read this review in its entirety, and the first section really captured how I felt about the quote-unquote slower parts. Even though this film captures the mind-numbing emptiness of flying blind in a tiny submarine where you could die at any moment, I did not find it boring. Maybe I'm used to stretches of quiet, methodical, tedious tasks being an artist and an oil painter, but I found the pacing to be exactly that, even and methodical. We're learning and waiting for a breakthrough along with the character. The first part of the movie where he's figuring out how the sub works, we can see his process through the camera work more than his mumbling to himself. Then the interest picks up with the discovery of a camera. It almost lets you calm down and lower your guard before something new and exciting and terrifying comes up. I think there's only one moment that really felt excruciatingly slow to me, but I definitely don't think it was boring. Slight spoilers though, I'll put the timestamp up, but Simon is told that he literally has 30 minutes to get the black box from the SM-8 and get back out so that he can be freed and be rescued. And he gets to the black box, the recording starts playing, and he's just standing there listening. At that point, I was sitting there sweating, so nervous, because I mean, I don't know what's happening yet. This is the first time I'm seeing the movie. The whole time you're just thinking like, is he going to get eaten? Is he gonna miss the ship? Like, I don't know which end is gonna get to him. I know he's gonna die, but how? And is it going to be right now? I just could not believe how incredibly slow this moment felt. To be honest, I think this movie should have scared me more than it did. Those of you who know me know that I have some phobias that are related to pretty much anything underwater. Blue holes, sunken boats, mechanical, anything really. Caves, general openness in deep water, even things like drains and sinks and showers, pipes, anything like that. If it has something to do with water, it's probably gonna scare me in some capacity, to the point where I get nauseous if I'm too close to some of those things. Knowing this movie should have terrified me, but it didn't. I think part of it was my excitement for it. Part of it was literally that you couldn't see the water or blood in this instance, so it was easy to ignore for a while. Probably part of it was my love for scary things and horror that desensitized me ever so slightly to things in media. But I think really it was the fact that I was invested in this main character, in Simon, in finding a way out and figuring out what is going on. I was invested in him getting out, in figuring out how to use the sub and the mechanics of what was going on around him. Too invested to be afraid of what was out there, because really the thing out there was his way out. I was a little disappointed, to be honest, that I wasn't scared. As I mentioned, I felt the anxieties of Simon throughout some of the later scenes, but I think because I knew what was coming and because of the reasons I mentioned before, I just wasn't scared in a surprised way. I wasn't on the edge of my seat waiting for a jump scare, because I knew what this movie was going to be and what was coming because I'd seen the gameplay before. To me, this movie was very psychological, more so than horror, but I think that might just be a matter of opinion. I'm sure it did scare some people. Now, for the amount of lore that was packed into this 2-hour, 7-minute movie, I think the ending was great. I generally enjoy open-ended books and movies. I think it can be hard to have so much information and backstory come to a concise ending in such a short amount of time. Usually, it either leaves movie endings feeling rushed or unfinished. I think for Iron Lung, there were just too many loose ends to tie up to close it off, and with the direction it went in, it either would have had to stray from source material or cut things completely to sum it up in a way that made sense. So I think the choice of having an open-ended ending for me was perfect. I'm sure there are some people that are disappointed about that and wanted some more closure and maybe more context on the story of the game, but I think for what it is, it was great in all aspects. Now, I'm just going to shoot off some other opinions that I have, but they are going to contain spoilers, so I'll just let you skip to the outro because that's just going to be my ending of this opinionated piece. This might be surface level, and I think that there probably is an explanation for it, but I just haven't really thought about it / thought deeply enough to come up with one, or I haven't really looked at many theories. But I'm not totally sure what was going on with the monster in the ship, the humanoid person that was in the ship. I didn't really understand if it was actually there or if it was just his imagination / manifestations of guilt or premonitions or ghosts of previous people on the sub or people have done this before trying to warn him. Theory I have seen was that it was a future version of Mark, which may be true, but I don't like that one as much, so I'm gonna choose to believe that it's not that. And on the radiation, I found that really interesting. I really enjoyed that concept of using an X-ray camera for the blood. It explains his deterioration physically and mentally as the movie goes on, and it gives a real explanation on the things that he's experiencing. With these sci-fi supernatural elements, it kind of keeps you guessing on whether or not the things he's seeing are real or if it's just the effects of his body and brain dying. Something I thought though, watching this film for the first time, was after Ava explains that it's a radiation camera and why, I really thought the skeletons were going to be monsters, like the main monster is. But it did look like the monster was able to be seen normally with flesh and everything through the radiation camera, maybe because of the effects of the blood. So I just thought it could have been a really interesting plot point, but I was sort of waiting for that shock and realization to set in with Simon. But after it didn't, I kind of thought it's probably not that. It's possible that I missed something because I have seen other people say this as well. And the skeleton does move, which could be explained by the kind of earthquakes. It could also be explained by the other monster moving them around, or it could be explained by the fact that that theory is true. I don't think I'll ever know unless Mark or the creator of the game, which unfortunately I don't remember his name, I'll put it on screen, unless either of them reveal that in the future. So that's my thoughts on Iron Lung. Like I said, the fact that this was a passion project is truly inspiring. I hope to do something big like that with my paintings one day. Obviously, probably not a movie, but I play guitar, I do music and stuff, so things like this are always quite inspirational. It gets me thinking, gets me wanting to do my own thing. So thank you for giving creatives a new heights to strive for. I think this is a huge breakthrough for Markiplier, for me, who's someone that, you know, makes paintings in their garage. It is quite amazing to see ordinary people beat big corporations. This painting was really fun to do. I really like the glow effect that you can see in person. I'm really not sure how well the camera captures it, but I was seeing it from a few different angles and in a few different lightings last night, and it almost shocked me how impressed I was with my own painting, which doesn't happen that often. Thank you for tuning in to my opinions and my painting. I hope you've enjoyed either of them, or maybe both. I am available for commission. There's more information on that on my website, which I'll leave linked down below, and my Instagram is down there too if you wanted to have a closer look at this finished painting or any of my others. Thank you for watching. Bye!